tough. Now on to Byways digs deep in East Sussex with Spike Milligan on mud.
The first glimmerings I had of the desire to be an archaeologist was when I was a boy in India, and we were by the river Hooghly, ancient river. And when the river ran low, I should notice actually dozens of beautiful brass Shivas and Indian gods and goddesses. I was immediately taken to them. I don't know why. It's just like something born, like the colour of your eyes. You're born with it. And that was the very beginning of it.
I used to go and dig over, when I was digging at Baynard's Castle, I used to dig over all the scree that they used to dig out, and I found a silver Norman buckler, and I found a bronze key, which is now in the British Museum. How about that?
Being keen on archaeology, I'm appalled to discover how little concern there is for it. Visit some of Sussex's finest sites and you'll see what I mean. Since moving down to Sussex, I've met county archaeologist Andrew Woodcock. I joined him on one of his aerial surveys of the county to look at some well-known archaeological sites and in hope of spotting some new ones.
Who introduced this technique when the people start saying, go up in the air and you'll find things? Who did it?
Really started in the First World War with the observers going up in the little planes to spot enemy fortifications, and they noticed that it wasn't just the enemy defences you could see, but also there was these strange marks, relics of the past showing up. If you look in that field over there, you can make out where it's been recently ploughed, that those rather square marks. Can you see those?
Yes.
Dark marks. Those are the field boundaries of prehistoric fields, probably dating back to the Iron Age or early Roman period. And field boundaries like that would have covered the whole of this downland. Now, whereas most of the ploughed-out sites that we see are domestic sites, field systems, occasional traces of settlement, the really spectacular sites are the major monuments. In fact, if you're looking for some sort of common theme to the journey, it's got to be man's defence of this part of the country. We are coming close to the Iron Age hill fort of the Caburn. We know that certainly a farming community existed on that hill as early as 500 BC. The first thing you see are lots of little depressions in the middle of it. It was settled, and those depressions are the where the earth has collapsed into former grain storage pits. The first fortifications on the hill were thrown up rather rapidly in about 150 BC, and the fort was sacked slightly after that period. But the major defences, which you'll see as we fly round there, were constructed just before the Romans came along.
Were the Romans responsible for the attack on the fort, well, I presume?
Not through certainty, but that's just assumed, yes. Yes. But on this side is the Long Man of Wilmington.
Ah, yes. Children, hide your eyes.
No one has ever decided exactly how old the figure is. Some people have suggested because it is a hill figure and there are other well-known Iron Age hill figures, it could be Iron Age in date. Other theory is because you get Roman soldiers with two staffs on Roman coins, it could be Roman in date.
Ah, yes.
Or there's even an Anglo-Saxon buckle, well-known buckle from Fingalsham in Kent, which had this figure holding two spears. It was on an air reconnaissance flight, something like this, that we first discovered the Beddingham Villa, and I don't really boast about this, but it's one of those instances when everyone's looking outside the one window of the plane, and you look out the other side of the plane, and suddenly, there in the field,
Are you saying it's you, Andrew?
Villa. I'm saying it's me. I'm going to put a
Ta-da!
claim in there for a bit of fame and glory. And it was so clear that not only could you see the outline of the villa and the ditches that surrounded the farmyard, but it was possible to make out even individual roofs.
Now they can see the rooms.
Back safely on the ground, I joined David Rudling, director of the Beddingham Villa dig, dated around 340 AD. It's very exciting because it's the first typical Romano-British villa to have been uncovered in Sussex.
Oh, wow. Let's get one look at it, David. Yes. Just when we get a buzz out of it.
If you consider the size of this is something like 40 metres long by 20 metres wide. You could probably fit something like 6 modern bungalows onto that ground plan. It's a large Roman farm.
We're looking back here now, about what, 1,800 years? Roughly?
About that,
But then,
yes.
yeah. What would the household consist of in the size of family?
Well, you'd probably have the main family or possibly an extended family. You may well have a man and his sons living in the villa, and also possibly servants and even possibly slaves.
Not far to go down to find it. Was that extraordinary?
No, it's only about 10 centimetres. And people often think that Roman villas and Roman sites are going to be a considerable depth down, but here we're on a site of erosion. The soil has been eroded by ploughing down slope, so in fact we found a lot of the Roman material down literally amongst the trees, because erosion's taken the material down. Now if you were at the bottom of a valley, you would have a considerable build-up of soil, because that's where the soil is arriving, so the Roman ground level down there is going to be a long way down.
I see. Ah.
So here we are at the front door of the Roman villa. You can see these two areas of masonry on either side of us, and these almost certainly mark the entrance, the main entrance into the villa. There may well have been other entrances at other points. But if we step through this now,
yes. So
unfortunately...
Can I stop 1 second, please, David? If I had come here, I want to buy some corn wheat off this guy. I'd be coming here with it.
Yes, you'd
Yes.
probably come and see the villa owner. You might be met by one of his family, you might be met by a servant, or even possibly a slave.
A slave, I see. Well, I'll come in as a slave,
Yes.
right? For the wages they're paying me at the
That's right.
BBC, yes, a slave.
Okay, so we've come through the front door, and the reason there is no door sill there is that has been removed by ploughing. And in fact, sadly, we're below all of the Roman floor levels in the villa. They've all since gone. But we've come through, and we're now in one of the main corridors. You can see this area running in this direction and going on to the south of us. This is the main corridor, which is fronting a series of living rooms. If we look in front of us then, this is one of the main living rooms, probably the principal living room.
The master.
Yes,
The master's.
certainly it's the largest one, so that your guests, as they came in through the front door, would come into here. This may have been a dining room, may have been a meeting room for people coming to see the owner. And then at night time, a lot of these rooms became bedrooms. We don't have, in the Roman period, the distinction that we have today of separate bedrooms. The living room by day becomes a bedroom by night.
I see.
We've got a couple of very interesting features here. You can see this area in front of us, which is made of tile and mortar, and is a small oven or furnace. This area is the stokehole. This is where you would feed the fire. And you can see these traces of charcoal, this black, these traces of burning. So the heat would then go through this flue made of the tiles, reused Roman tiles, and then the hot air would actually come up the far side.
Is this heating into wall heating or underfloor heating?
No, this is probably sort of domestic, either an oven for cooking purposes,
I see.
or it could conceivably be a lime kiln.
Well, it seems, I see.
And next to this are a couple of small holes,
The post holes?
small pits. Well, this one is actually packed with iron forging slag. All of this material here is iron forging slag. So it is possible that these are activities when they're making the villa. They would have needed vast numbers of nails. We found thousands of nails on the site.
See.
And it
Of
may
course.
well be that this is part of the process of making the villa, that you need to, on the spot, have a blacksmith making nails, someone making lime.
So it's a very important weapon, this...
It is. Unfortunately, it's not actually used on many archaeological sites. A
But they
lot of archaeologists won't use them because they've got a bad name through treasure hunters.
I know.
But all they are really is a tool, and it depends how they're used. And if they're used well, then there's no reason why we shouldn't use them. I mean, we can try and find a signal here, and you'll find them all over the place.
Oh.
And there's one there. I can actually get one out. This has just come out of the topsoil this morning. I have to find the right clod.
You little devil there. Ah. Now that's not a Roman.
Well, it's a Roman nail, I'm talking.
Is it really?
There's an awful lot of them.
Handmade. All local stone here.
Yes, most of the stone on the site is flint, which comes from the chalk downs, which we can see in the distance. There's also quite a bit of chalk on the site, which is used in building. In fact, the mortar, the cement that actually holds the flints together is made of chalk. They've simply burnt it and made it into lime. So we've got large chunks of the South Downs there incorporated in the villa. We've also got Wealden ironstone. You can see these darker blocks.
Are those the ones on the lip of the
Yes,
plunge mark?
yes.
12 centimetres.
It's very interesting to actually find a Roman villa anywhere in East Sussex anyway. There have been various theories about the early Saxon settlements that we get between the rivers Ouse and Cuckmere. Various people have suggested that the reason we get this very early Saxon occupation is the absence of Roman villas. And here we are, we have a large Roman villa.
What's like suddenly somebody knocking at your door and saying, I'm sorry, there's a Roman villa in your garden?
Well, I said that they've come along, they want to dig this a rather great hole in the middle of one of our fields.
Well, did you take it as easy as that?
Well, I think I did, really, yeah. I saw all these poor people actually working in the hot sun and scratching away with brushes and digging it out, and my heart melted to them, I'm afraid. I did offer to put our bulldozer in there, and clear the tops. That stirred them up.
I struck the living daylights of it. Bulldozer with that.
Think of the chance if somebody put up the money to rebuild that Roman villa from the ground upwards with young people using old techniques, and then open it up to the public, go inside, see how they lived. It would be absolutely wonderful.
A few centuries on, my next port of call was some medieval cellars. Strolling down the serene streets of Winchelsea, it's hard to believe that this was once a bustling port and the centre of the wine trade. Local archaeologist David Martin explained the secret lay literally under our feet.
So, cellar under that one,
Where?
cellar under those two there.
Yes?
That was a huge stone hall house behind there, with shops all the way along the front.
A what
Fragments of
house?
Hall house.
Hall, I
Big
thought it was a whorehouse. A hall
There were a
house.
few of them about as well,
Oh,
but
yeah.
no, that's a hall house.
What's a hall house? Tell me. What's it about?
Huge open room.
Yes?
You lived in the open roof, open to the roof, with a
Oh,
fire
it
on the
wasn't a
centre.
public place, it was a
No,
family
it was
house.
a family house. A large merchant lived there.
And you say that this telegraph pole here
Oh yes, when they dug the hole for it, they let go and it disappeared into a cellar.
found us,
Number 34 had been discovered.
if we're walking on them now, it seems to be everywhere.
Yeah, there's 33 of them in Winchelsea, and this is the largest. All built around 1300. And this is a massive great thing. Nice and cool down here.
Ah, fireplace?
Yeah, that's a bit of a contradiction, isn't it? You build a cellar to keep things cool, and then you put a fireplace in.
What was the point of these cellars? What were the keeping in?
Well, the main point was for the storage of wine, because Winchelsea was one of the big 6 towns for importing wine from the Gascony region. And in fact, we have some sort of idea there. There are pretty large quantities being brought in. 737,000 gallons of wine in one 8-month period in 1307. The retail value of that one 8-month period is £25,000, and that's in early 14th century terms. Because this is one of these cellars where we've actually got 3 rooms, one behind the other. This is more typical of the Winchelsea cellars, just a barrel vault.
Ah, staircase that suddenly stops it.
It originally came from down here. It's an added staircase, in fact. This particular cellar had a very grand building above it, which went derelict as the town reduced in prosperity. And this cellar under here was leased by the house next door, so the chaps just knocked the staircase down through the wall in order to get into the cellar. Winchelsea originally was down right by the sea, south of Rye, but it was being swept away in the mid-13th century by the sea. And the king founded New Winchelsea, where we are at the moment, on top of a hill.
Henry.
This is Edward I.
Edward.
Edward I. On top of a hill in 1280. Now, it must have been a bit of a shock for the new merchants coming here, because they, instead of just taking the wine to their storehouses on virtually level ground, then they had to bring it up from the quays, right the way up onto the top of this hill.
Ah,
And this is the...
Tutankhamun, is it? My God. What have we got here?
Bit of an archaeological dump, isn't it?
Look at this stuff here, my God's sake. Look, they must have eaten very well, these Victorian. This is Victorian stuff, isn't it? Scallops. Scallops here.
Oysters.
Oysters here. Oysters here everywhere.
And one massive animal bones as well, I noticed.
So this was what, genuine Victorian rubbish tip?
Yep. I don't expect it'll ever be gone through and recorded.
I see. Look at the beautiful stuff they were actually making in those days. Like, this seems heartbreaking that the place is one. A million bits here. This like this. Old ink bottles like that. Remember those like this? I think this might have been a medicine bottle or something. No, this might be a Leon Perrin sauce of some kind. That's much older than it, of course. Bottom of a patterned decorative vase, I think, went on the mantelpiece like that. You know, the place is full of it. It's very haunting because people's lives are encapsulated in all this. Somebody one day bought that bottle at the store, took it home, had a drink. Unbelievable, they ate off these plates on a Sunday. All little children came here, they go mad, wouldn't they? Looking through the stuff. Just imagining what it used to be and who owned it like this. I'll lead on, shall I? Yeah. Lead on, kindly light. They call me Florence Nightingale, the lady with the lump. David, you've got something, a little treat to show me, you said in here.
Yep.
This
is one of several carved corbels.
His legs are going upwards at the back here. What craftsman would have done this?
Probably English.
Probably English. Crude church carving, isn't it?
Yeah, some people think that these cellars were chapels, but it's purely because they look so ecclesiastical.
He's trained to be Quasimodo, isn't it?
He looks remarkably like him, doesn't he?
Just a hunch.
30 years ago, I unexpectedly came upon this lane and met two very special people. Fred and Zoe Vahi have opted out of conventional life completely, but the one thing Zoe will not give up is her passion for archaeology. Fred and Zoe's enthusiasm and philosophy reflect what I imagine Sussex used to be like and how I wish it would remain.
Is that one of the pots you found then, Zoe?
No. No, I don't think.
You know what I did today, Zoe? I must tell you. I ate out of a 600 BC pot. I had my porridge out of a 600 BC pot that I dug up in Cyprus.
Oh!
I ate my porridge out of it, and I had my sugar out of a bowl that was Mediterranean about 300 BC. How about that?
Fine.
That was very exciting.
Leave that one up there.
That's Mediterranean, isn't it? Or Arabian?
No.
No?
What's the Jericho?
Jericho. That's right, Mediterranean.
About the time of Abraham.
Can I take it down? Yeah, I can only eat it. That's a stopper.
Well, I think what it was, you filled that with water, you see,
Yes.
out of your water jar. Then you stood that in the top, and it sweated
And cool.
and cooled, so that you could have a cold
I
drink.
see. It didn't infiltrate
Now,
into it. You had to refill it,
that
didn't you?
was found in
Like-
and it was undoubtedly brought home by a soldier from the...
Oh, I see. You found it in Pet, but this is Mediterranean.
Yeah, it's
thank
from
God for that.
Jericho.
Where do we do this?
You can
Marvellous.
go and match it in the British Museum.
That's marvellous. That's quite wonderful to have that. Time of Abraham, eh?
Got here without getting birds, you know.
That's marvellous. Fred, you're a countryman.
And I'm not a countryman.
I see. What do you think of the state of the environment today?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the brains of the human being has outstripped their intelligence.
That's a very fine statement, yes. I would
They're
go
so
on with
clever
that.
now, they can blow the whole place up, and they're poisoning it, and they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to live without spoiling the place. What we're doing is living sort of inoffensive if we can, really. Just living like rabbits.
Have you ever been outside? Have you ever been on a motor? Have you seen a motorway?
No.
You've never seen a motorway?
I've been in motor cars, yeah. Actually driven one when I was a kid, but I've not seen the modern motorways. I don't know what they look like, and I don't particularly want to. I think it's an appalling waste of the countryside.
It is. The Breed Valley, where I live, that's an area of scientific and natural importance, and yet they're going to build a bypass through it, right through the middle of the Breed Valley. So it doesn't matter. The pressure is so great now that the rules have no teeth. I pray they don't. We're away from archaeology now, aren't we?
Are we? one thing archaeology will show up when you really look at it is how it goes on and on and on. Come up to a peak, overpopulation, overuse of resources, boom. But this time, we're really buggering it up.
Yes,
well, I don't see how it's going to recover.
I don't know what you can do. I think possibly Mars was something like this and they ruined that.
They buggered that up as well, Fred.
I don't think human beings are intelligent enough to not sort of the nest.
They are not intelligent enough to handle the environment.
No,
They've been trying to
they
live.
ruin it. It's only their clever brains that enable them to ruin the environment. I don't think humans are advanced enough. It's so recently they were up in the trees. They can't go back up the trees, they cut them down. You see.
Archaeology is under great pressure. As I speak, there's not 1 square foot of England that is safe from development or roadways of some kind. And in their path lie magnificent archaeological sites. There's more than scores of these sites lying around here in Sussex. And what I worry about is with this disdain by most of the authorities for sites like this, what's happening is they're not being saved, they're being recorded and then filled in and the road goes over the top, lost forever.
Down on Pet Level Beach is where Zoe found her Mediterranean water stopper. I'm there to join an old friend of mine, Peter Marsden, maritime archaeologist at the Museum of London. We first met digging up an Anglo-Roman wreck in the Thames. Now we're looking for prehistoric acorns.
This is the old land surface 5,000 years ago. So the sea has risen since then. The ice age has melted the polar caps, and so the sea has risen. And 5,000 years ago, this was a forest. And people wandered around the trees, and in fact, Bronze Age tools have actually been found in the clay here.
Really? So it was the clay over the sand?
There's clay underneath the sand. The sand is here, washed here by the sea.
I see.
So, and if you're lucky, you can actually find a 5,000-year-old acorn in the clay here. Yeah, this is a good one. There we are. Oh, tree trunk. 5,000 years old. That's a marvellous one.
Wait a minute, it's still wood, isn't it?
Yep, it's still wood. Good
Is
hardwood.
it in the process of being petrified? No, it'd have to be in the hot sun, wouldn't it, above ground for petrification?
Or buried in the wet ground, but this is exposed now by the sea, so it's being washed away. This isn't petrified now. It would be in perhaps a few million years, but
I see.
The sea is eroding this old land surface.
Well, this one would, chances are it might be an oak, yes?
Yes, oh, very likely. There's a lot of oak around here. When the tide is high, there's 10 feet of sea above this now. So 5,000 years ago, the sea was well below this.
No, extending
right
further
out there.
I see it extending out to there and there.
Yeah.
And when the tide goes out, there'll be more still, wouldn't there?
There is more. And the wreck of the Anne, which lies a little way out there, there's more of the remains of the forest around that.
I see. I was suggesting this went a long way into the channel. Yeah?
Well, the channel isn't very old. It's only 15, 20,000 years.
This stretch of the English coast has the world's greatest concentration of shipwrecks. Over 500 are recorded in the Admiralty charts. The one we're particularly interested in is an East Indiaman, the Amsterdam, which foundered here in a gale in 1749.
This is the lowest tide of the year.
I think this is about the best time to see her, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. This is the covering planking, isn't it here, Peter?
This is the outer planking.
And these are the ribs within here.
Yep. There's a bit of the deck. The upper gun deck is there.
There.
And that's the deck beam.
That went right across there then.
Yep.
Look at the thickness though, look at that.
A great wall of oak.
Below this line is the ship more preserved.
Beautifully preserved.
The figurehead, Peter told me, would have been a lady?
A lion.
A lion.
Lion.
Of the company, the Lion of Amsterdam, is it?
It'll be a lion of Amsterdam.
That's right, it used to be right here.
That's
like
right.
This. Alas, it's gone, but you see the tremendous thickness of the wood here.
Yeah.
The workmanship is just unbelievable for that period. I doubt if men could do it today.
Yep.
And I'm sinking in...
And I'm getting stuck in quicksand as well.
Are you...
This really is quicksand.
I don't want to lose my boots.
No, I know.
Thank you. Well, Peter? Well, it was not as quick as I thought it was going to be. It's very slow. And what was she, a 30-gunner or what?
No, over 50 guns.
50 guns.
Over 50 guns.
So she's and she was victual for a trip of how many months?
Basically 9 months to go to Batavia in Java, and 333 people had to live in that.
Like the whole thing is packed. What would they be taking?
It's a lot of wine, masses of. The contemporary record says there were many dozen bottles of wine. So if you think about that, that's a hell of a lot of bottles of wine, isn't it? This was found in 1969 and still has the wine from 1748.
Red, isn't it?
Red wine,
would
isn't
have
there?
been French, wouldn't it?
French?
Yes.
Yep. And you can smell it.
Yes. Well, I
don't drop it. It's
I got it
very
right.
special.
It's at room temperature. A charm. Well, it's Peter. It's not a clear red wine. It smells like malmsey, like it's had honey in it. So
We've had it analysed.
Fortified?
It is fortified.
Right.
21% proof.
Ah, that fortifies a lot of people. What's the eventual end for this ship?
At the moment, the aim is to excavate it gradually and remove all the content. It's the best preserved East Indiaman in the world. The English, the French, the Dutch all had East Indiaman opening up the Far East. As South Africa, Cape Town was colonised by the East India Company.
It's quite beautiful, isn't it? It's the Breed Valley. It's twilight time here. But I often wonder, is it also twilight time for the environment? Is it twilight time for archaeology? Looking here at something extremely beautiful, but it's in no way particularly guarded, this site. It still rings of history. I mean, only yesterday at the pub, I was speaking to the farmer, Mr. Mayor here, and I was saying we were doing this archaeological program, and he said, oh my God, recently we found napped flints, Neolithic flints at the bottom of the field here. So the ground here is crawling with archaeology. It just has to be detected, observed, and dug up. Alas, as I speak, there are plans going ahead to put a motor bypass right to the middle of this valley that would attract restaurants, petrol stations, and the like. Deep inside me, there's suspicion that this will be covered with a degree of buildings owing to the pressure of population. Magnificent sites will go under the building sites. And if we could actually do something like think very little of Shakespeare's Rose Theatre. What do they think of a few crummy flints in the corner of the field here? And believe me, if I had my time again, I'd be an archaeologist.